We talked about the signing itself on Saturday's episode. And now here today, Lyle, we're going to dive into Shohei Ohtani's contract and what is by far the most unique contract ever signed in Major League Baseball. Let's just kick it off with this. He signed a 10-year, $700 million deal on Saturday. $680 million of it is deferred until the contract is up in 2034.
Unreal. He is making $2 million a year off that contract for the next 10 seasons. Does it matter to Shohei? Probably not, because the guy makes $40 to $50 million a year in endorsements. So if you want to factor in the contract from the Dodgers and the $2 million a year he'll get, and then all his endorsement money, he's still the highest paid player in baseball. So he probably doesn't care that the fact that it's going to be 10 years from now when he starts getting the real lump sum of that contract and the bulk of it basically after he's done playing and after his time with the Dodgers has ended. But yeah, he's still going to be making a ton of money. And the fact that Dodgers set this contract up like this, it's pretty wild. There are some unique specifications that we're going to get into here about it, but very, very wisely set up by the Dodgers.
So if you're not aware of how this, I would say it's essentially a tax evasion. The Dodgers are doing legal tax evasion on the salary cap, on the luxury tax thresholds. That's essentially what this contract is doing. Shohei is doing this so the Dodgers can sign as many players as possible. And you might think, if you haven't read or seen it, how did they get away with only paying Shohei Ohtani $2 million a year, unless that's what he specifically agreed to? Well, the Dodgers have to pay the tax amount on what the value of that money is currently worth year by year of that contract. So the current value of his deferred money, which is 10 for $680 million, is $46 million a year in current day money. So that's the number, that's the tax number that the Dodgers still have to pay. They still have to take $44 million and they have to put it in like an escrow account. So it grows to $68 million. So when they have to pay Shohei in 10 years, that money is there and waiting for him. So they can't just get around the salary cap by paying him $2 million a year after agreeing to a $70 million a year contract. But the craziest thing about this is that even when you take the escrow numbers and the current day value of that contract, Lyle, it is still the biggest contract in baseball history. It still beats Mike Trout's contract by $34 million, even the fact that it's deferred for 10 seasons.
Takes quite a player to get a deal like that. Now, in case anybody's still a little confused on how this contract's going to work for Shohei, the guys at the Just Baseball show, Peter Apple, Aram Layton, obviously friends of the pod, they've been on with us. They did a really good breakdown of this contract in a little bit of a longer form than TJ and I are going to do. So if you want more details on this, we certainly recommend you go listen to them. But here's basically the easiest way we can dumb the contract down for anybody who's still a little bit confused. Shohei himself is going to make $2 million a year. That part's true. The Dodgers still have to fork up $46 million a year to the tax. So the Dodgers are not getting away with only giving up $2 million a year for the next 10 years. They still have to give up $46 million per season. Now, that's less than paying $70 per year, and paying the $46 still frees them up a little bit to go sign some other guys, but it's not quite the $70. And they're also not getting away with literally only paying him $2 million a year. Because the narrative right now on social media and on TV and whatever else is, oh, the Dodgers only have to pay Shohei $2 million a year for the next 10 years. Look at all these fringe big leaguers making more next year than Shohei. Well, it's not quite like that. The Dodgers still have to pay $46 million a year due to Shohei to the tax. So less than 70, but it's still a decent amount.
It's still bizarre to look that in terms of cash value, though, Shohei is the 17th highest paid player on the Dodgers. 17th. 17th highest paid player.
Think about it like this. They say, I mean, if you want to go down this road, they say one WAR is worth $8 million. So in that regard, Shohei has to put up like, what, a 0.2 WAR to live up to his contract this next year in the next 10 years and make $2 million.
He needs to play the first series of the season, and that's it.
Yeah. and then he can just sit out. But yeah, it is wild. I will say, I think my favorite thing that I've seen over the last few days regarding all the Shohei contract stuff was the guy who put together that Wolf of Wall Street clip that used Leo DiCaprio's voice to totally AI his voice, but talking about Shohei's contract. And it's the scene where they're all on the golf course and then they get back to the office. And it's like some lawyers from Major League Baseball came down to the office and tried to check this all out, but we turned the air conditioning up. And then it cuts back to actual Leonardo DiCaprio playing Jordan Belfort for like 5 seconds, where he says, "You're probably asking yourself, was all of this legal?" Absolutely fucking not. So if you want to go look up that clip, it's not very hard to find on Twitter because it is surfaced beyond belief over the last few days. It's very well put together, I will say, to the guy who made it. So I've gotten a laugh out of that.
What's also pretty bizarre about this contract, do you remember Ronaldo's contract he signed with the Saudi team? Do you remember that? 3 for $674?
Yeah.
Like, this contract's bigger than that.
Yeah, it's the biggest contract a pro athlete of a team sport has ever signed.
Which is, it's insane. Like, they did line up like Ronaldo's contract next to it. Now, again, if Ronaldo signed a 10-year deal with the Saudi league, he easily would have broken that. But he only signed a 3-year deal. So Shohei still does have the upper hand. And it's just bizarre that Major League Baseball, which has thrown around some pretty ridiculous numbers in these long-term extensions, is the league on top. Like, not the highest revenue league, not the most watched league in the world, not the most global sport in the world, but still, they have one of the most notable global athletes playing their game, and he is now being compensated accordingly. I wonder how much money the Dodgers made as soon as he inked the contract on Saturday. Like, how much money of that contract came back to them in endorsements and in advertisements and inquiries and all this stuff? How much do you think they made back in the first, let's say, week since now?
Well, you saw the note about the jersey sales. The dude set a record by Fanatics in the first 48 hours that his jersey went on sale. So that alone is already making the Dodgers back a ton of money.
Did you see the price of opening day?
What is it? $800 I saw?
Double.
Oh, it's $1,600.
Yeah.
for like a standing room only seat. See, this is what I mean. While I'm still sad he's not going to be a Mariner, and if you want my reactionary video to that is on our social media pages. But if you're just talking about the two of us being baseball fans, this is fantastic for the sport. I know a lot of people are not happy he went to the Dodgers. They're forming a super team, quote unquote. But you know what? This is very, very good for baseball. Not only is he going to be in the playoffs every year, but have you seen how much baseball and Shohei have been talked about over the last week? And especially like since the day the crazy flight tracking stuff happened, baseball's on people's radars now. Like, people that don't follow baseball are now following baseball, and they're following Shohei, which is a very, very good thing.
Speaking of that Friday, can we just take a moment? The fact that Shohei mentioned that he was sitting on the couch with his dog Decoy, by the way, in case people were wondering, Decoy, ironically named for the fact that there was a decoy flight on Friday to Toronto that he was sitting on his couch laughing at as he's seeing the world meltdown.
Okay, I don't know if that's actually why he named the dog Decoy.
It's not, but it's a very funny coincidence.
It is a funny coincidence. Friend of the pod, Jason Stark, put that out there saying, oh, so he named his dog after the flight to Toronto. But yeah, I mean, so I guess that the truth comes out about his dog's name and all that. But yeah, that was hilarious to hear that Shohei saw all this stuff happening, and he's just sitting on his couch. He's like, "Whoa, they think I'm on a flight to Toronto, those morons," or whatever. Yeah. Now, he didn't actually say that.
Should we tell him? It's like, no, like, let them have a little bit more fun.
Again, Shohei's too nice to actually say that out loud. But again, like, the fact he did admit he was kind of sitting there to himself laughing, hearing all these rumors, was pretty funny to hear.
Do you think he called Yusei about the sushi restaurant? He's like, dude, do you know what they're saying about your sushi reservation?
Oh man. Yeah. This is good for baseball. Like the fact he's going to be in a big market, he's going to be in the postseason. Like, this is what the sport needs. And if you're just talking about growing the game, while we're sad he's not going to be a Mariner, this is a good thing.
There's a couple of other interesting stipulations in his contract. First of all, he's guaranteed to have his interpreter, which is great for his interpreter. He gets his interpreter is guaranteed his whole contract. Second, he gets a suite, not shocking, all regular season and postseason games. That's fantastic for all of his family and probably his interpreter. if he's not in the dugout. Well, actually, no, his interpreter would be in the dugout. You're right.
I was going to say Ippei sits in the dugout. Ippei, who's his interpreter, sits in the dugout.
Okay, well, Ippei's family and Shohei's family gets a suite every single game. The third one, which was by far the most interesting, and I really don't think we've ever seen this. There's a clause in the contract that if Andrew Friedman or owner, who's the president of baseball operations, or Mark Walter, who's the principal owner of the Dodgers, they get fired or change roles, Shohei can opt out of his contract. I've never seen that.
It's crazy. That is Mark Walter and Andrew Friedman. I mean, I guess it doesn't matter to Mark Walter. He's the owner, but Andrew Friedman has to be hyped. He's like, I just secured my own job security for the next 10 years.
Yeah. No one's ever going to fire me.
No. And not that Andrew Friedman was ever getting fired anyway. He might be the best GM/president of baseball ops in the whole sport at this point, but it's still nice to have the security. It's like, well, we have the best player on the planet, so I'm not going anywhere. And now there's a clause in the contract saying I'm not going anywhere. So
do you think Andrew Friedman was sitting down at the table and Shohei and his agent are going over things he would like? And I'm just imagining the Drewski meme where he's like, where he's sitting at the table and Shohei's like, oh yeah, we want guaranteed, you guys guaranteed employment here. And Friedman's like, me?
Yeah.
Me?
Yeah. Oh man. Here, okay, I've got two more quick things on Shohei before we move to the next topic.
Okay.
Number one, could the Mariners have done this deal? Could they have done the deferred money type of deal where they pay Shohei the $2 million a year, the $46 million to the tax, and then in 10 years, you know what? This ownership can sell the team. Maybe they'll sell it sooner than that. Could they have done it?
I'm going to say no. Let me tell you why I'm going to say no. The Dodgers, in their pitch to Shohei Ohtani, outlined to him, we have made the playoffs 10 times in the last decade. And we have one ring. After all of that, we have one ring. And we qualify that as a disappointment. And Shohei said he was so glad to hear how committed to winning they were. Now, Lyle, I'm not a hot take artist, but I'm not sure that line of talking would have come out of the same meeting with the Mariners.
Well, considering they missed the playoffs this year and said the season was a success, probably not.
That ends the conversation right there. In theory, do you think they could have put up enough equity to defer $680 million of current day money? Yes. Yeah. Like, how much is Root Sports worth?
I don't know. It seems to be just decreasing by the day.
Okay, well, if Root Sports was worth $500 million and they found a way, if anyone is actually a loan expert that listens to this, please comment on this video and tell me if I'm wrong. Or if you're listening on podcast, go to YouTube and comment and tell me if I'm an idiot. Like, you can take out a loan and then put up the equity of your business against the loan. So the bank obviously has something to hold on to while you pay back that loan. I think they can, taking out a little bit. It's like a home equity loan, except it's for Root Sports Northwest.
Well, that, and like we talked about with Shohei, this contract's going to pay for itself. So him just being here would have made the Mariners a ton of money. So yes, they would have had the funds to pay him if they'd actually signed him.
Yeah. Do I think they could have paid him? Yes. Do I think the conversation would have ended as we missed the playoffs, it's a success? Yes. That it would have ended right there. He would have walked right out of the room, gotten back on his private jet, and flew back down to LA.
Here's the last thing I want to wrap up with Shohei before we move on. I'm sure most baseball fans agree with us on this, but I just want to continue to push this narrative as much as possible. He is the best athlete on planet Earth. He's not just the best baseball player on planet Earth. He's the best athlete on the planet. And if you're out there and you're going to say Patrick Mahomes, my response to that is, if Patrick Mahomes decides one day he wants to become a defensive end and starts playing Micah Parsons level defense on the defensive side of the ball, then we will begin the conversation of Shohei versus Patrick Mahomes. Like, we're not even having it right now. We'll begin it if that happens. Or if Kylian Mbappe, big soccer star for anybody who doesn't know the name, also decides one day, you know what? I want to start being a goalie. And then he also becomes a top 5 goalie in the world. We will begin the conversation. But until then, it's not even close. It's Shohei.
I agree.